I can put 7 minutes of your time to good use if you'll share them with me. I'd like to talk to you about how God can hook an extra on the front of the ordinary in your life and mine. Can't stay, I get it, busy time of the year. Just post your prayer needs on the page before you slip out. But if you can stay around, have you ever wondered why God chose shepherds of all people to hear the news, or first hear the news of Jesus' coming? You know, there's one word that describes the night of the arrival of Christ. Ordinary. The sky was ordinary. An occasional gust stirred leaves and chilled the air. The stars were diamonds, no doubt, sparkling on black velvet. It was a beautiful night. A night worth peeking out your bedroom window to admire. But it was not really an unusual night. No reason to expect a surprise. Nothing to keep a person awake. It was an ordinary night with an ordinary sky. The sheep were ordinary. Some were fat. Some were scrawny. Some had twig legs. Some had barrel bellies. Common animals they were, lumpy, sleeping silhouettes on a hillside. And the shepherds, well, they were ordinary peasants, probably wearing all the clothes they owned, smelling like the sheep and looking every bit as woolly. They were, no doubt, conscientious, willing to spend the night with their flocks. But you know what? You're not going to find their staffs in a museum. You're not going to find their writings in a library. No one asked their opinion on social justice. No one asked their opinion on the application of the Torah. They were just nameless, simple workers. It was an ordinary night with ordinary sheep and ordinary shepherds. And were it not for a God who loves to hook an extra on the front of the ordinary, the night would have gone unnoticed. The sheep would have been forgotten. The shepherds would have slept the night away. But God dances amidst the common. And that night, well, he did a waltz. The black sky exploded with brightness. Trees that had been shadows jumped into clarity. Sheep that had been silent became a chorus of curiosity. At one minute, the shepherd was dead asleep. The next minute, he was rubbing his eyes and staring into the face of an alien. And the night was ordinary no more. The angel came in the night because that's when lights are best seen, and that's when they're the most needed. God comes into the common for the same reason. His most powerful tools are the simplest. I wonder if that's why the announcement went first to the shepherds. They didn't ask God if he was sure he knew what he was doing. Had the angel gone first to the theologians, they would have first consulted their commentaries. Had he gone first to the elite, they would have looked around to see if anyone was watching. Had he gone to the successful, they would have first looked at their calendars. So he went to the shepherds, men who didn't have a reputation to protect, an axe to grind, or a ladder to climb. Men who didn't know enough to tell God that angels don't sing to sheep, and that messiahs are not found wrapped in rags and sleeping in a feed trough. Some years ago, I made a visit to Bethlehem, and I made a special effort to visit the supposed birthplace of Christ. Behind the church, there's a cave lit by silver lamps. You can enter the main edifice. You can admire the ancient church. You can also enter the quiet cave where a star embedded in the floor recognizes the birth of the King. There is just one stipulation, however. You have to stoop. The door is so low that you cannot go in standing up. The same is true of the Christ. You can see the world standing tall, but to witness the Savior, you have to get on your knees. So, while the theologians were sleeping, while the elite were dreaming, while the successful were snoring, the meek were kneeling. They were kneeling before the only, one and only. They were kneeling in the presence of Christ. Maybe you feel ordinary. Maybe your world feels common. If so, congratulations. Christ came for and Christ comes to people like us. Merry Christmas.